You're listening to the Hustled Up podcast. I'm Laura Natoli.
And I'm Holly Silva, and we are best friends since birth turned multi-passionate entrepreneurs and co-owners of Chores and More, a successful service-based business where everybody is treated like a best friend.
Welcome to our show where tactical business education meets fun and real conversations about this wild journey called life.
Get ready to be inspired. Grab your headphones, turn up the volume, and let's hustle up.
What is up, Hustled Up fam? Welcome back to this week's episode of Hustled Up. I am your host, Laura, and not to worry, Holly will be joining us for this episode as well, but it is a crazy day and she has stuff going on. So I'm here to introduce today's episode, and we have a super fun one for you. Before I dive into the topic, I do, as always, want to remind you to quickly rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. 5 stars is the best, and we would just love if you could leave us a little love note if you're enjoying the podcast and have gotten value from it. All right, as I said, today's episode is super fun. We had the great pleasure of chatting with Alexis Neve, and she is incredible. Her business is actually portrait photography, but her real passion is helping women entrepreneurs specifically create a brand through storytelling, and not just a business brand, but also a personal brand. And she really discusses how you can use photography to help build your personal and business brand. And she ties it all together so beautifully and gives us so much insight during this episode. And honestly, I think that this is one of those episodes that anybody can walk away taking something, whether you are in the cleaning industry, whether you own a business, whether you don't own a business. I think that there is something in this episode for you. So I really want you to stay tuned.
Are you tired of spending your entire weekend cleaning when you could be going out to brunch with your girls?
First of all, I love brunch. And second of all, yes, there are so many things I could be doing instead of cleaning my house on the weekend.
Oh yeah, like playing video games.
Or watching a movie with the kids.
Going on a date with your significant other.
Taking your dog to the dog park.
Going to the movies.
Solving world hunger.
Yes! Exactly. So this is why it is such a good idea to call up Chores and More for your deep and recurring cleaning needs.
And do you want to know something really, really cool?
What?
If anybody mentions Hustled Up when they call to book, they can receive up to $100 off their deep cleaning.
Up to $100 off. What are you doing still sitting there? Pick up the phone now, mention our podcast, and never have to spend your weekends cleaning again.
Simply go to choresandmorellc.com. You can fill out our request quote form there, or give us a call, send us a text, 631-397-0177. It is time to get back to doing the things you love. Let us take care of the cleaning.
We are back, and we are joined with Alexis Neve, and I am so excited for this episode. But before we dive into the topic, do you mind, Alexis, just sharing a little bit about yourself for our listeners?
Yeah, sure. So my business is actually as a portrait photographer, but one of my big passions is working specifically with entrepreneurs and especially women on their personal brands, because I love to educate people on the difference between a brand, as you're thinking like Coca-Cola has a brand, Apple has a brand, and Steve Jobs, as the late CEO of Apple, has his own personal brand, and they interchange between these two things. So I'm also consulting with people based on my past life, so to speak, as a marketer for 10 years, working with startups. So I've built brands for a fair bit of my life now, and that's pretty much what I do.
That's awesome. I love the difference between just like the brand of your company versus your personal brand. I love this. And you know, we said this off camera. I feel like in our industry, in the service-based industry, people don't realize that it's very important. It's very important to have that personal brand and for people to know you. You want to be known in your community, in your industry, and you want to have the things that you're known for. So I love that. And I'm also very passionate about this. So I'm very excited for this conversation. But we'll go back to the beginning. You are a photographer by trade. How did you get into your career? How did that start for you?
Okay, how far back do you want me to go?
As far as you want.
Okay, strictly speaking, I started as a teenager. And that was I got my first camera on my 18th birthday. It was top of the line, wonderful. Got myself into concerts, did street photography for magazines, and helped out on a number of very high profile sets. I got photos all over the press in Europe, some in the US. I had one photo in a Michelin guide. But
wow.
yeah, I know. Despite all of that, my family didn't think it was like a reasonable thing to do. They all thought, well, you need the studio and you need the fancy camera. There's even like the more professional one than the one I had. And all of these kind of like entry costs. And then you need to know people and need to go to school. And so I kind of like, okay, fair enough. I went off to university, studied history. I have a master's degree. So 5 years of university. And I started doing marketing at the same time, kind of like while I was studying to kind of like get a bit of extra cash because people think I'm 10 years younger than I actually am, but I was alive at the time of the boom of social media. So what do you do when you're like an enterprising young woman at university? You create a lifestyle blog and you like pitch people to get you jobs. And I nearly got a job in accounting because someone at a branding firm liked the branding of my blog. She wanted me to have a foot in the door, completely not qualified for accounting. So that's like, oh, actually, it looks like I'm good at these things. So I ended up exploring building brands, and it's a really cool thing for me. I love to see like the storytelling side of it, how to express who you are, what you stand for. So fast forward, I started doing that, charities, startups, pandemic hit. So too much
Wow.
time on your hand because the job I had at the time, I was traveling for work, running workshops. And so that was impossible. We were in lockdown, started playing games. And I found myself playing like a rhythm game, kind of like music, and you tap on the screen and it's kind of like, just stories. So was this story about, like, it's virtual idols, so it's kind of like a pop band, but like 2D from Japan. And one of the stories was kind of like a London theme photo shoot. And I was kind of like, okay, I'm a Londoner. That's a big thing for me. And this is one of my two favorite characters. Kind of like really hit. Kind of like voice at the back of my head. Like, that could have been you. And I was like, wow. That's like the intuition, like kind of properly hitting higher self, hitting yourself, like bang on the head. And so that's how I'm kind of like, okay, when this lockdown ends, I'm gonna give it a shot again, because I was like listening to Jenna Kutcher and her $300 camera, being a six-figure photography business. I'm like, could have been me. So that's the very long-winded story of how I got to a photography business.
I love it. I love it. And I love that your story is really unique, that you were inspired to kind of really like put your fear aside and go for it from a game. Like, I love that. I love that. And also it really is about letting go of fear. And, the age old saying, I don't know if this is a saying in London, but here, they say that there's always somebody who is doing it better than you, who doesn't know it better than you. That's not even, I'm butchering it. That's not the real saying.
Yeah.
But that's basically what it is. It's that, I've had this so many times. That could be me. That could have been me, and I still get that a lot, actually. Wow, that could have been me. I could have done that. So I love that, because I think like one of the important lessons for any of our listeners to even take away right here in the beginning of this episode is to go for it, to just go for it. Don't be afraid. Don't compare yourself to other people. Comparison is the thief of joy. And just go for it. You don't have to, and they say done is better than perfect. Let people inspire you. Right. And I live on that. I love being inspired by people. So I love that. I love your story, and I think that it's awesome. And you've really built such a powerful name for yourself. And, and you've taken what started as a photography passion, and you've also turned it into, and branding is a form of marketing. So it's funny, it all ties in together, right? But you've turned it into something so big where now you can offer this gift to other entrepreneurs who are struggling. So with all of that being said, we had spoken off camera for a minute on the different types of photography and how I think people think photography isn't important as entrepreneurs. Like, when you think photographer, you think wedding photographer, you think engagement photo shoots, baby photo shoots. People don't realize the importance of it for establishing a brand, a personal brand, a business brand, whatever the brand is. So I would love for you to elaborate on the differences between branding photography, why it's important, and how it differs from other types of photography. If you wouldn't mind, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I love this question. How controversial can I be?
Oh, we are all about that. We are go for it.
Okay, there's a lot of people nowadays that are marketing themselves as personal branding photographers, that they don't have the similar background as I do. And they're kind of like pivoting because this kind of like has a buzzword. And what they do is like standard portraits, maybe like this corporate headshots and like artist headshots that's kind of like been around for a long time. But the thing is, personal branding, as you were saying, is about establishing your authority as a brand. And as I see it, is especially about telling the story of who you are as a brand using images that support what you have in the copywriting on your website. Because people connect more with images, we retain more information if you see it with images, conversion rates are higher. So it's like I could probably go back and look at all of these numbers, and there's a lot of evidence that having a strong, beautiful website actually already increases the trust that you're trying to build, and kind of like sort of quantum leap it compared to if your website looks like a bit dodgy. A lot of people are starting to see that as a potential niche for themselves as photographers without understanding that it's less about having like the action shot or the headshot that you're going to put on the homepage and the one that you're like behind your laptop. Everybody has one at a cafe. And how much it actually goes into it. And I see people having businesses that have nothing to do with the kind of props that they use in the images. And then I see businesses that are doing stuff is just like, wow, this is us to be one of the best photographers out there for it. Because I really like the attention to details in all of those images that I don't think it's necessarily bad if you're using like stock photography, if you know what you're doing when you're using it and how to create the narrative using photos, connecting the colors and all of the imagery, the kind of things that you put in the stock. But it's better if you can have a photo shoot that has your own like little details of what your workspace looks like, and branding sneaked in a little bit where you see your logo and all of these like things that jog the memory and make people remember you and associate you when they see something. And so one copywriter I like, Ashlyn Carter, she's famous for her champagne. So every time you see that's a brand of champagne, you're going to think about her. So that's the kind of thing that you can do with brand photography. And I think a lot of photographers offering it don't realize the potential. That if you just went into like a marketing course and started seeing from the storytelling point of view, of like the marketing. Because a lot of people seem to think that marketing is about the tactics you use, on kind of like I market myself on Instagram, that kind of things. No, the marketing is about the strategy of how you take a person from A to B. That the simplest way is how you take a person from the A when they don't know you to B when they purchase from you. So you can do that with your personal brand photography. As it's not the only thing that will make someone buy from you, but it's a way of accelerating that process. I hope that very long-winded answer kind of makes sense.
No, it's perfect, and it does. Laura, I thought you were going to ask a question, so I'll let you go first.
Oh, thank you. I have a question about, because especially for our listeners, I know when you're trying to develop your specific brand, it can be really difficult to figure out what that brand is. And I know kind of you touched on it, you're storytelling, you're telling about yourself. But how do you get the entrepreneurs that you do work with to kind of determine what their specific brand is that will determine what your photo shoot looks like, if that makes sense? Because I know exactly what you're talking about. You see all those basic photos, not to be rude, of people like with their arms crossed or holding a cup of coffee. And how do you decide with your clients, all right, what is your brand and how are we going to pinpoint that in the photography that you do with them?
Okay, so that is a two-layer questions, because if you've done the groundwork already on creating your business and you have your messaging in place and you know what your brand is, then the job of the photographer is just creating a mood board around it and say, so you're this person, this brand, and this is your audience, and I'm trying to communicate the connection. I'm your person for the things that you're looking for. So that's the easiest one when you already have all of that stuff done. When you don't have that stuff done, that's why I started introducing the consulting and going back to, well, I'm not a big fan of a lot of my career. I wasn't happy and fulfilled. It was more like you get that one job and then kind of like snowball from there, because that's your experience and everybody keeps hiring you for the things you're good at. And okay, it's not my zone of genius and I'm not particularly happy, but I'm good at this. So I might as well use it, right? And that's where you kind of like go back to the basics of your messaging and the basics below your messaging, which is who you are as a brand, what is your unique selling point. So a lot of people differentiate themselves on price, and that is just a race to the bottom. There's always going to be someone who's willing to do it cheaper, find a way to do it cheaper, and there's always going to be like an economic crisis that's going to hit everybody, that's going to put you out of business because you're kind of like gone as low as you can and you can't make a profit. And just sort of these, even if you don't want to be a kind of like very high-end priced business, because obviously some people might be having really high level service and that would probably be considered like luxury. Like there's a cleaning staff for like Buckingham Palace. That level of attention obviously requires a lot from the person giving it. So even if you like a more reasonably priced and more basic service, you kind of want to differentiate yourself on something other than price, even if you keep the price low. So it's all about what it is that you do different, why you do it differently, and then what things can you put in place to communicate that to the people who are going to be the one looking at you. So one example, a lot of people are on social media to promote themselves, but is their audience actually there? So you can say the same thing, you can have the most beautiful photos, but you're not communicating because it's a two-way street. If you don't have the person on the other side, that is not going to happen. So if you're saying something about, like, for example, the price, and the other person is not looking to make a decision based on that, it's like you're shouting at a wall. So it's all of these considerations of what is your goal? The goal is the sales, and who's the person you're selling to, and then kind of like you reverse engineer it.
Yeah, I think that's I say this all the time, that in order to establish your brand, right, you also have to figure out who your like client avatar is and who is your ideal client. Who is your story going to touch? And I think it's important to appeal to the emotions of your potential buyers, and being the most affordable. I can't stand when people are like, we're the cheapest in town. No. First of all, you're probably not. And second of all, that's not going to appeal to any emotions. That's going to appeal to people who honestly don't really give a crap about your story, and they just want the cheapest price out there, and they're not really going to care about you, and they're not going to care about your business. They don't care about who you are. So I love that you brought that up, because that is always my first thing is don't establish your brand on your price. That's like a no-no. And I feel like you just attract all the wrong people when you do that. And then you went in deeper and said, well, there's going to be a point where you're just going to go out of business because the economy's not going to be on your side anymore. And so I think that's really, really good. And being able to leverage your brand and convey it in your photography and in your photos that you use on social media, on your website and all that stuff. I think that is really important. And it is it does lead to higher conversions, and it leads to more trust. And honestly, in any industry, not just cleaning, not just the service-based industry, but in any industry, you want to work with people that you can immediately trust. And for me, I have a hard time trusting anybody that I can't see their face. So if it is just stock imagery, even the nicest copywriting is not really going to sell me as much as like a warm smile or whatever it is that I'm personally looking for in a brand. So I think that is so important. And what should somebody who is like, okay, I definitely want to get some photos. Like, I definitely want this. What should this person look for in a photographer if they're looking for shoots for their personal brand?
My thinking around this may be kind of counterintuitive, since you say, well, you're the one who's studying the photography, while you say not everybody needs to have a personal branding photo shoot. And what I mean is, if you're just starting out and you haven't taken your product or service to market, and you have tested that there is a demand and that's the correct niche and the messaging is resonating, you don't have to spend that much. Now, I completely agree with you over the idea that you have to have your face somewhere on the website so that people can connect with you. There's always this, like, if there's nothing there, you're like, are you for real? Is this a scam? Like, it's a phishing thing. So you kind of want to have an element of that, but it doesn't have to be like a full-on photo shoot. So for that, you can go to any old portrait photographer and get in like the headshots. Try to not have anything that is not particularly casual. So if you're not like a properly corporate account where you're like C-suite level of brand, you don't need to have the kind of like stuffy standing like that in a pantsuit kind of photos. Obviously, that's probably basic for everybody listening. You want to have a few photos of yourself. If you can fit in the budget, having those photos I mentioned with like the details of where you work, and you're seeing some photos from like lifestyle kind of shots where you show your things a bit more candid, because those build trust faster, but they're not like necessary when you're just starting out. That's, you can have the photos of yourself, and then you can strategically use stock photos that convey the messaging of who you are for. For example, if you're working primarily with mothers who are in business or are working full time and they need to have you around the house at specific times to be able to work, and you're selling them the transformation, that they have the peace of mind as they go about the things that matter to them instead of having to think about chores. So that's like a potential brand. You might want to be like, oh, I have kids too. Here's like a candid photo of me with my family, because then you're like, that shows that you understand where your client is coming from. So this is the kind of photos you want. And some of them you can easily get like a good selfie with a tripod. It doesn't have to be professional. The reason you want to have a professional one is when you're scaling. And that's when you really want to invest in someone who knows what they're doing with the marketing side of things. And if you're looking at someone and you're not sure if they understand the personal branding, then you can ask them specific questions, which we probably would take too long if I started listing them today. But I'm going to provide the questions for your community to refer back to if they're looking for someone to do personal branding. But the short version of it is, do you understand the strategy behind the photos? So if I'm a cleaning business, I'm not going to be taking a photo sitting on like a prop, like a disco ball, sipping champagne. And I've seen people taking photos like that for business that have nothing to do with party planning. Because I see a photo like that when I don't know who you are, and I'm landing on a personal brand website. So it's not even like there's a brand name that says what you do. So it's just a person's name, and that is like on the landing, top of the website. That's the photo you have. I'm going to be like, okay, this is a party planner. I like her style. I'd like her to do my engagement planning, like party kind of thing, which I don't actually have, but like hypothetically. And then you're saying, no, but actually I clean houses. So that is a waste of money. And then people are like, I've done branding photo shoots and I've done it once a month because I needed content for like Instagram, but it's not converting. Well, duh, because you're not actually telling what you like, communicating a marketing message. So if you want to have fun photos, like I'm the first person to say go and have it for the experience. It's a wonderful experience, and it can build your confidence if you feel like you're not really confident about things. It could be like do it for you. It's never a waste of money to take photos. But if you're doing it for the marketing, that if you don't have the strategy behind it, then it is going to be a waste. So that's the thing that you kind of like need to look into. Does your photographer understand it? And if they don't, do you understand what to say? Like, I need these things from you. Can you provide it? So it doesn't have to be the photographer doing the marketing strategy for you. I can do that because that's my background. That's like, because it's a premium that not everybody can offer. But you can lay the groundwork and then go to a photographer and be like, I need these photos for this purpose. Can we make it happen? And that's how you look for the right person. And that obviously the consideration, like, do you like the style and all of that more basic things that it's always going to be a consideration.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I love your examples too. Like, what a genius idea. Like, you know, especially people with children, to post a photo of them with their children on their website. A lot of people who hire cleaning companies are busy moms, right? So depending on what industry you're in, and this is why it's so important to figure out who you're serving, you can kind of work your brand around that. And maybe being a mom is your brand. And in that case, this would be amazing. Or if you're married, maybe you want to appeal to people who just got married and are buying their first house. So then you post a photo with your husband or something like that. So I think that's great. I love that you said it's never a waste to pay for a professional photography session, because it's definitely not. I think that's something that is really important that I would need when hiring a photographer. And I've been through photographers and I've struggled with this. So this is something I would definitely ask going forward. I would need somebody to help guide me. So I may have the vision of what I want to portray, but in terms of like where to put my hands and things like that, or like where I should be sitting, or like even what to wear, because I'm not like familiar with color composition and things like that. So that like really specific stuff is really important to me. And I feel like some photographers don't quite know, and they just tell you to do, you know, what you're doing. They say, oh, sit here and like go on your laptop. And then I'm on there and I'm like, okay, what do I like? Do I look okay? Is my double chin out? You know, I need them to know that to suck it in if it's out, you know? So I think that that's also really important, is finding someone who, or at least for me, finding someone who would be able to guide me through every step, through all the poses and things like that, because I'm just so unfamiliar. And, you know, and then with a selfie, it's easier. You see yourself, you know, you can see if you look good, but when somebody else is taking photos, you can't like see what they're doing. So I remember the last time I had my photos done, I was very stressed the entire shoot because I like couldn't see and I wasn't being given a lot of guidance. And, it was actually more stressful for me than it was like fun. And so I think that that is like another important, thing to ask a photographer. But I wish you were in New York, because I would be like, all right, we got to get a shoot on the books.
I can travel.
Do you? Well, you've already been to 5 countries.
Yeah. I'll let you know when I'm coming over as a visit. And
yes, please. Yes, please. That would be great, because I really love that, you know, you're about just really portraying yourself through, and all of the things, like not even just photos, but you mentioned copywriting and like all the components of storytelling. So like it's obvious that you know your stuff, which I love. So I think that that's really awesome. And yeah, I love it. I think it's really, really great. You had said that somebody who's just starting out, maybe they don't want to hire a professional photographer. This is kind of going away from photography and just a general question about branding. But what are some really important components of establishing a personal brand aside from photos? Like, what are things people should really work on when they're establishing their personal brand? Like, what do they need? You know, and I know this is a loaded question. But when they're starting out, when somebody's starting out, maybe they want to launch their business or they already launched it, but they just don't have a brand yet. What are things that people should be really establishing, you know, in the beginning? What should they be looking for and building in the beginning of establishing their brand?
Well, I don't know if this is going to be liberating or kind of like making people panic, but I think personal branding is just like a buzzword that we use now in marketing in like the 2000s with the age of the internet and everything to mean you have a reputation. You can't not have a personal brand. The question becomes, do you want to be proactive about curating what people know you for? Or do you want to leave it to chance? Because there's no way your reputation doesn't precede you unless people don't know about you. So as soon as you're out there, whether you're networking in person, posting things on like community boards in your cafe, or you're online, you will have a personal brand just by virtue of existing. So what are you going to want to be known for? Is like, that's the $1 million question. So everybody wants to be known for being professional, obviously, but that's because you deliver on the things that you say. Your word matters, and that is like a basic. But also, when we're talking about this example of a family with a brand talking to mothers, you want to be known as someone who cares, nurturing. Or if you're kind of like, for me, I do photography mostly with artists and creative entrepreneurs, and I attract a lot of spiritual businesses, and I believe there's kind of like there's an overlap. You think like Brian Eno has like an oracle card deck, so it's kind of like everybody who's kind of tapped into the beyond, whether they make art or they make something else. But there's a lot of people work in that industry. I'm mostly kind of like very bougie for people kind of like alternative. So you kind of like if you rather buy Alexander McQueen compared to like Dior. So it's a very tiny differentiation, but kind of the style of things I do. It's like more gritty and sexy and edgy. So that would be my consideration on kind of people I'm talking to. I'm not going to have like the soft flowers on the website. So you're thinking of that. Who are you speaking to and where are you speaking to them? So if you're like going networking in person, that's different than if you're kind of like online. If you're trying to stand out online, you want to stand out. And that like, I'd like to like repeat it, like stand out. A lot of people like fit in and they're like very similar to other people. They see what works and they do the same thing. And that's not going to work in this day and age. I don't think it's too late to grow online. I don't necessarily think it's the best thing you should be doing if like kind of like social media because you don't own it. Like you can use it as a nurturing tool for connecting with people, but not for like if you're trying to sell to people and you want to do it online. In my opinion, focus on your email list so you can contact people directly, and that's going to be different the way you present your brand when you have more space compared to you're trying to attract attention in 30 seconds or less. You literally have 5 milliseconds when people are already judging you. So that's as quickly as the first impression. So yeah, if you're overthinking it, you're just gonna give the wrong one because you're gonna like being stressed. When I talk about what people should look for personal branding, I come from it for the personal branding point of view in like portraits in general. Yes, you would expect someone who knows how to direct and understands that people are not gonna be comfortable in front of the camera. There's people who are kind of celebrities that are not comfortable in front of the camera. Models are kind of like trained to do it, but like normal people are not. And that's like not to kind of like to my own horn, but I don't like to give like time photo shoots because like I understand what it's like to have someone there, and it takes time to relax. And I want people to have photos they can use and they're happy about. So I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, it takes me more time. And that kind of like reflected in the pricing compared if I was saying, yeah, you're paying for 2 hours photo shoot and then you pay for the photos, which is like the model everybody uses. So, but just because I understand what it's like, especially for women, we have all of this messaging around our bodies and our look and how we're supposed to, like our mannerism and things. And you're just kind of like, am I in the right pose? And they're not saying anything because like if what's going on in the head of the photographer is like, oh gosh, the light is changing and I should have got these other light here, or I'm mostly using like natural light today. Should I have got a black box? Because gosh, it was meant to be sunny. Why is the cloud coming? This is most likely what's happening. Or oh gosh, the SD card has stopped. I had a situation on an actual work shoot. It was coverage for a catwalk. So that's like a very fast-paced thing. I had to borrow someone else's camera for that situation. And the camera kind of stopped because they had the wrong SD card in. And they kept like, that's like a nightmare situation. So I can bet you what's going on in the photographer's head is anything but your poses unless they're deliberate about directing you and realize that they need you to do it because you're not someone who's been trained to know how to pose. And even then, I'm sure a lot of like models still get directed. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
sorry, diverted a little bit, but going back on what people need to think about the branding is really just about your end goal. Who are the people you want to like you? Because obviously they need to like you. They want to buy from you. You're not gonna, if you're like disliked, people are not gonna buy from you. So it's not about like, I'm not saying it in like a people pleasing kind of way that you have to be what you think people are gonna want. But it's about kind of how to communicate that you are the person that they want.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And I'm like, it's a tough reality. And we did a branding episode years ago when we first started our podcast. And, one of the things I said is that not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to like you. And and we've learned that the hard way over the years. Like as likable as you try to make yourself, you can be the kindest person in the world. There are going to be people who just can't stand you. They don't want to work with you. It's just how it is. Everybody's different. And so it's important, as you said, to make sure based on who you are, based on, I don't think it's that you want to make it up. I think it all kind of does start with who you are, which is what you said. Based on that, who are you serving? It's not going to be everybody, and your brand is not going to be for everybody. And then, you kind of went on to say that who you are in real life is also part of your brand. It's not just who you are on social media and who you are online to the world, but you have to make sure you put that out there every day in all that you do. And that's why I think also it's important to be authentic. So I don't like establish my business brand or even my brand as like a family woman, because I'm a career woman and I don't have kids. So I'm not going to like be like, oh, I'm a family woman, I don't have any kids. It wouldn't make sense. So it's important to do it based on who you are and what you've been through in your life. What parts of you are going to appeal to different people, and then who are those people? And not only, you don't only want them to buy from you, but you want them to keep you around. You want to connect. I think that especially in, technically photography is a service too. So I think this could be said for either industry, like either of our industries, that forming that bond and that connection is going to make for a good experience. And then, so now not only are you providing quality photos, or in our case, a quality cleaning, but in being able to establish that bond through your brand, you're able to provide your clients with an entire experience from start to finish. And that's important. And I tell my cleaners this all the time. And, I don't know if you can relate, but I say you don't really like have to be the best cleaner. I mean, obviously you have to be great. You have to be excellent, but you don't have to be perfect. But you have to be able to connect with people. You have to. and just having a website and not really having much on there, just saying, we're the best cleaning company in town. We're the cheapest cleaning company in town. I'm the best photographer in town. Even if you take the best photos, if I'm not resonating with your story or who you are as a person behind the camera, I'm going to be nervous to use you, and I may not use you at all. I might choose somebody who doesn't have perfect, I'm maybe not completely loving her style or whatever, but I may give her a chance over somebody else because I'm resonating with her story more. I've done that in the past, actually. So, and with other people I've hired and stuff. So I think that that's really important. And, you didn't say it in these words, but what I took away from what you said is that it's important to kind of start small, right? Like keep it simple, build that email list, go to networking events, carry yourself in the way that you're presenting your brand, and keep it simple. You know what I mean? So, getting all these followers on all these social media platforms, and then getting professional photos done, and putting and then all, you're not going to get 100,000 followers overnight, so it's important to keep it really simple. Like, who are you going to be, how do I word this? Who are you most easily going to be able to put yourself in front of so that they can see that brand? Establish yourself in your community. Laura and I are big in our community. We're all in the Facebook, local groups and stuff. We're putting our, we make cute little graphics in Canva and stuff. And, we're always putting ourselves out there and putting that brand out there that will treat you like a best friend. You can trust us, no judgment, we're judgment free, all those things. And a lot of people, they love it. They call us all the time. Oh, I saw you on the Facebook moms group. I went to your website. You guys look so happy all the time. And, I just got off a sales call an hour ago, and she said the same thing. Oh, I loved your website. You guys look so friendly and happy. And I was like, yeah, that's how we do. That's the brand we are personally choosing to put out there. So I think keeping it simple, keeping it small at first, after you figured out your message, right? So first you figure out what the message is, and then you keep it small. I have another question. They always come as I go.
Something like coattailing from that one, although I don't know what the question is, we might touch on that. The simplicity part is really important. I'm glad you brought it up, because one thing people don't always think about, part of personal branding is how other people perceive you, not necessarily your clients, but people who can refer you. So if you're not simple, the people are kind of like, okay, for example, if I had someone in your kind of area close to you and you just said this very powerful thing about being a judgment-free zone, and I'm like, wow, because I know for a fact when I was still with my ex-husband, the house here was a mess. And probably part of the reason why we kept, sorry to go a bit personal, we kept arguing over the chores. He wouldn't do anything. And I'm kind of like, I also have a career and I feel like I can't give it the energy because I'm just taking care of you like you're a child. But bringing someone in to do it, I think it would really trigger them with kind of like this idea of being judged for the state of the house. And kind of, my mother, the kind of person who would probably clean before the cleaner comes. So I get it. There must be a lot of people out there that resonate really strongly with that message that you have, a very powerful one. But it's easy to think, if I know someone who's overwhelmed with the situation and the chores are not their top priority and they might feel self-conscious, I'm going to go to you and say, look at these people because I can trust, I know them, and they're going to not care. You can like relax and let them take care of you. So that is an important part of branding as well.
It is. We've had people refer us who don't even use our service. Just the other day, somebody on a Facebook moms group referred us, and I was like, Holly, who is this person? And she was like, I don't know. But clearly she must have seen us online and liked what she saw and figured, okay, these look like trustworthy, nice, judgment-free people, and referred us without even ever using our service. And it sounds so crazy, but it happens to us more than you think. And I really do attribute that to our really strong brand and presence online and on social media. It speaks volumes because for somebody to even, because when you refer somebody, you're kind of putting yourself in the line too, right? You're like, I'm recommending this company. I'm kind of putting myself in the line. So it's something so powerful that if you're able to use your brand to get strangers to trust you and be willing to put their own word out there for you, it just goes to how powerful brand is. And I think that I'm so glad we're doing this episode, because I feel like branding and marketing is something that a lot of business owners kind of neglect and don't realize how important it is. They're so focused on quality control and this and that they don't focus on it. So I'm so glad that we are touching on this, because it's so important.
I had a thought and it like totally fled my brain. You were talking and I was like, ooh, yeah, I have a thought. And then you kept talking and I was like, ooh, that's good. That's good stuff.
So was the case, isn't it?
And then it completely went out of my brain. But I remember what I was going to say. Touching on what all of you have said, I also think it's important. A lot of people, when they start putting themselves out there on social media, so I'm touching on social media for a minute here, because social media is big, right? Everybody uses it, you had said, and it is a great way to put your brand out there. I think it's important to make sure you are staying consistent with your brand on social media, whatever platform you're on, and also not be stressed over the amount of followers you have, even the amount of engagement, because I tend to get a little discouraged when my engagement is low or my follower count's low or, oh my gosh, I lost a follower. But the amount of people who have found us on social media, despite a low follower count, or, you know, at least what the social media world would consider low. But if you put hundreds of people in a room, or, 1,000 people in a room, that's a lot of people, but we won't go there. The amount of people who say, you were referred to me and then I went on your Facebook and I loved your videos. I loved your photos. I loved that I could see your face. I loved what you're putting out there. I loved your Instagram. I love your stories. You know, we even had somebody yesterday. I felt like a celebrity, and our company Facebook does not have that many, it's our company Instagram does not have, I think we're at like 700 something followers, like very low compared to by social media standards. And she told us, she was like, oh, all the girls at my office follow you. Everybody follows you. Everybody's going to know you're like, I'm the guinea pig. You're cleaning my house, but everybody is following you guys. They love you. And she finally hired us to clean. And she was like, oh, all the girls at the office are going to be hearing about this. They're all going to call you. But it all started from them all following us on Instagram. And, we don't have this crazy follower count, but we stick to the brand. We stick to consistency. We put our faces out there all the time. So I think that is something that has been important. And I think a lot of people will say, oh, I only have 150 followers on Instagram. I only have 500 followers on Instagram. It's not working. I'm not going to keep doing it. They give up. But don't focus on that number right now, especially when you're small, when you're starting out, when you're scaling. Just stay consistent. People are noticing. So I think that that's also really important. I wanted to note that before we continued on. So, yeah. Okay.
You said you had a question for her. You said you had one more question. Did it leave your brain?
Oh, it's long gone.
Oh,
it's long gone.
I remember you were like, I have a question.
It's so long gone. Honestly, I feel like everything we spoke about today was just so incredibly helpful. And I love, I know your primary industry, like your industry is photography, and you still gave so much great advice for the cleaning industry, like so much goodness. And again, we don't have only people in the cleaning industry following us. We have entrepreneurs from all backgrounds, but all of this could be applied honestly anywhere, in any industry. And I think that people should really, if they weren't taking notes in the beginning of this episode, they need to go back and take notes. I took notes because this is helpful for me too. So if you guys saw me looking down during the episode, it was because I was jotting notes down like a crazy person. But this is so good. It's so important to put yourself out there. And I can't stress it enough. Just do it. Don't be afraid of the camera. Don't be shy of yourself. And going back to judgment free, photographers don't judge, or at least none that I've been around. And, and if you're nervous about that, I'm sure there's a photographer branding themselves as judgment free, and they'll help you feel comfortable during your shoot. Don't be afraid. Take a selfie if you can't do a shoot right now, if that's not in the budget. Set up a tripod, set up your camera, have fun with your staff or with yourself or with your family, whatever, you want to put out there. And just don't be afraid. Done is better than perfect. So I love this. I love everything you offered, Alexis. Honestly, it was amazing. So is there anything else that I forgot to ask you that you would like to tell our listeners before we wrap this up?
So I was really glad that you mentioned the embodiment, and especially when you kind of like doing it in person, but also online, how you've been where the people who need you are. So a lot of like focus on growing your accounts online. That's not what people like to see. So if you have an account, it helps build trust because it doesn't look like you have something to hide. And that's pretty much it. People are not going to look like, oh, they have a lot of followers, they're famous. No. And that can actually be a hindrance, because if there's not someone who wants the exclusivity and feeling like you're kind of like a celebrity yourself, they're not going to want to hire you if you have like 1 million followers for your TikTok videos promoting like cleaning stuff. Yes, so one thing I'd like to touch on was the idea of like the energy you embody. And you were saying doing the selfies and things. As I said, it's counterintuitive. I'm someone who sells photos, but a lot of people feel more comfortable taking their own photo because they can see. I'm more comfortable having my photos taken when I know the person knows how to take them, because I hate having my photos taken as a rule. I'm awful at like self-portraits, of like taking videos. Like it just like get very self-conscious about the fact that it's me there, and having the other person kind of like being a mirror and allows me to relax into the situation and pretend the camera is not there. Because my background being music, and there's a lot of kind of like candid documentary style. So, and I used to be a theater kid when I was a teenager. So I'm used to pretending not to be me. But it's easier when you kind of like have the audience to feedback from. They can like going back and forth. So there's a lot of pressure and feeling like if I get the professional photos, I'm kind of like more established and more serious. And I like to speak. That's not the case. Go for what makes you feel better about yourself, because that's the energy you're going to put out there. When people see the photo and you're kind of like smiling, for the love of everything that is holy, don't smile in a photo. No, never smile. And I'm not saying don't have a smile in a photo. If you want a smile in a photo, laugh. Because it looks absolutely awkward and awful when you smile. And everybody's always like, these group photos, and okay, say cheese, and no, don't do it. And there's so many professionals that don't tell people not to smile. Okay, like, you're a professional. What did you study? Because you don't have to go to school for photography, because that just teaches you the technique. But kind of like have someone mentor you, assist on a set for a day. I don't care how you do it, but learn what not to do in front of, like, how to direct people and what they shouldn't be doing. So that's like my little rant about the smiles. But as a saying, you want to be relaxed, and you want to come across that this is really you. If you are the kind of like more friendly and approachable type of person, you want to be coming across as that. Is that not who you are, and you are the RBF and you're just kind of like really serious? That's what you want to come across as, because some people will actually resonate with that. It's a lot of talk about being relatable, but we all relate to different things. So don't feel the pressure to appear in a certain way that is not you, including taking professional photos just because you want that validation that you are established and you have the professional photos and your business is successful enough to pay for it. Because you can spend that money in a lot of different ways. I really kind of feel strongly about spend it in the way that moves the needle for you. If elevating your brand by having a professional in charge of doing a photo shoot is what moves the needle, then do it. Otherwise, there are a lot of other ways, and people are none the wiser, because people cannot tell the difference. Because like the iPhone camera is actually more megapixels than my camera nowadays. and nobody knows. Like, I'm telling you, I'm completely transparent about it. They're so good, most people cannot tell.
Wow. That's crazy.
So I know.
I think it's more so like, I guess when you're hiring a photographer, you're not hiring, well, you're hiring them for the skill, right? Like anybody could take a photo on a phone, but not everybody can style a shoot, get the message portrayed in a way that, makes sense. You're hiring the talent, you're hiring the person, otherwise they would just be camera rentals. so yeah, I think that I love that though. Just really like, you have to be comfortable. If you're like forcing yourself to do things that don't make you comfortable, then that's when you are going to come off looking awkward or weird or just like uncomfy in your pictures. So sometimes depending on what your brand is, a fun little selfie, a candid, Laura and I are all about the candid photos. We'll say, all right, candid, ha ha ha. We just pretend to laugh. We do that all the time. Because those smiles are weird. You're just kind of like,
yeah, I'm glad I know that about the smiles now. I never thought about that. I'm like, okay, good. Like, I feel like we are laughing in a lot of our photos. So I'm glad that I just got that validation from you.
You're welcome.
So I think that that's really great. And it's really, I think it boils down to just really being yourself, figuring out who you are. And then the rest of it follows. But, as long as you can accept the fact that who you are is not going to be somebody everybody is going to relate to or love, then you're on the right track, as long as you know that. And the people who do resonate, the people who resonate with your story, the people who can relate to you, the people who just are drawn to you. There are some people out there I'm just like naturally drawn to, even if I don't fully relate to them or something, or maybe I just inspire to be them or, whatever. But there are just some people I'm like naturally drawn to. But then there are some people that I'm just naturally drawn away from. Like their energy just doesn't match mine. There's something off with the vibe. I'm really into that kind of stuff. I follow my gut and my intuitions on those things. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the person. It just means that something is not aligning with us. And sometimes there's nothing, it's not even about who you are. It's just your natural energy and stuff, just not aligning. So sometimes that happens too, and that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to love everybody, and not everybody has to love you. And once that's like the first and most important thing, with establishing a brand. And once you accept that, it's all peaches and cream after that. It's all good after that. You start to embrace who you are, and then you start to learn how to portray that in your brand. And it boils down to even just the styles of your images, how bright they are, the colors you use on your website. Like, are you happy? You might want to use yellow. Yellow is a happy color. People say that, and things like that. It boils down to every little detail, and you just have to be really, really intentional in all aspects of your brand. And then it all kind of starts to tie together once you start to figure it out. But it really starts with like self-discovery and figuring out who you are. And I think eventually the rest starts to follow, and then you've got people like Alexis who can help you once you know who you are, once you've figured that out. Okay, this is who I am. This is the story I want to tell. Then someone like Alexis, if you're really not sure where to start, can guide you. Okay, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to, start these social media channels. We're going to start an email list. We're going to, maybe you could consult. I don't know if you even do this, but maybe you consult people on their website and the colors they use and what kinds of, and obviously photography, what kinds of photos they're putting out there and things like that. But it all starts to tie together, and you don't have to know how to do it all yourself. And if you don't, that's okay. We pay for answers all the time. That's how we do. So sometimes you just need to pay somebody for the answers. But I think this was a great episode, Alexis. And I know you had said that off camera before, and this is why I wanted to lead into this about consulting a professional. You do offer consulting services, and you also have a course. So can you just dive into that a little bit, just so that we can sign off with all that goodness?
Yes, so I'd like to offer a little discount to any in your audience that would like a little more support with establishing their brand. I know the course specifically is targeted at artists, But as we discussed here today, the principles are universal, so they will apply regardless of what kind of brand you have. And in a way, you are artists as well. You make things beautiful. So it's probably just a case of like the messaging, maybe like, is it for me? And like, this is the invitation. Yes, it is for you. Otherwise, I wouldn't be saying it's available for you guys. And it's basically the process that I would guide through if you're working one-to-one, and it's part of the process of how I get to or arranging what the photo shoot would look like. So it's like the very basic. If someone doesn't have their brand basics in place and they come and say, I need these things from you, that's what they would be going through. And it's self-paced because everybody has their different energetic capacity, time constraints, and all of the things. So I wanted to make it as as accessible as possible, because I think it's really foundational to people's success that you can communicate who you are to the right people. And a little thing that came to mind from what you were saying, a lot of people think that's a bad thing if people don't like you. But think about it. Don't make it mean something about you not being good enough. It would be so exhausting if everybody wanted to work with you. You can't do it. It's a good thing that there's so many other people doing a similar thing to you that can serve slightly different people. So that's a little reframe, and that the course fits in how do I speak to the people I do want to serve, and the people I do want to like me, and communicate that. And it's a little process. It goes through this tool called the Matrix of Destiny to give you some archetypes to think through who you communicate yourself to be, because sometimes you're kind of like, who are you? And you're staring at that screen like, I have absolutely no idea. It's too many things. I don't know what's relevant to this. But one of the ways to read that tool is personal brand. So I thought it was kind of fitting. And I don't think anybody's actually offering that, not at this point in time. So it's kind of new. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Kind of like going deeper on the things we talked about, when giving you the space to think your answers through for yourself, and then you have your brand.
I love it. We will have all of the information about that in the show notes and on the website. So if you're like, yes, I need more time, I need more of this awesomeness, you can check out the show notes. You can also reach Alexis. Would you mind just plugging in your social media channels or your website, wherever you want people to find you?
Well, if you want to connect in a way that kind of like more immediate and asking questions directly, my Instagram is this is Alexis Neve, and then my website is alexisneve.com, and there's a lot of free things around that on the blog about both working with photographers and personal branding, visual brand storytelling, which is like what we talked about in jargon, and I have a newsletter that's free about having a personal brand. So there's all of these different avenues.
Awesome. I love it.
I will definitely be checking out that newsletter. Me and Holly have been talking a lot about our personal brands and how it can work hand in hand with our business brand, because I think it can be a little confusing as a business owner, because, you don't want your business to be your entire identity, especially because we call them multi-passionate doers on this podcast, where we are very multi-passionate. So I'm definitely going to check out the newsletter, because I know I got to work a little bit on that personal brand as well. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for all of this amazingness, Alexis. This was an awesome conversation. I will definitely be putting all the notes to practice.
I'm going to need a copy of those, Holly.
I got you. Notes. Don't worry, I got you. Thank you so much again. And I look forward to the next chat we have.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. I really appreciate you having me here. And I hope that it will be of service to your community when it comes out.